Hello, my name is Taylor and I'm a birth educator with Sky Valley Midwifery. And today's video we're going to talk about active labor. This is going to be part 2 of a 3-part series discussing labor on a whole, which encompasses early labor, active labor, and pushing. Let's dive straight into active labor. What is active labor and what's happening in the body at this time? When the body enters into active labor, there tends to be a noticeable shift in the laboring individual's demeanor. That's both noticeable from your care team and even your support persons. And even, let's be honest, in yourself as well. Labor becomes all-consuming, and the body begins to produce hormones that help the birther zone out and cope with the sensations of contractions. Contractions at this point are going to come closer together, anywhere from 5 minutes apart, even less and sometimes. And when I say apart, I mean from the beginning of one contraction till the start of the next contraction. So that time period is going to be anywhere from 5 minutes apart or less. And the contraction itself, you can expect to last at least a full 60 seconds, if not longer. And that is probably the most important identifier of when active labor kicks in, is that the contraction length becomes longer. Up until that point, sometimes you can even get into a contraction pattern where the contractions are happening pretty close together, but they just might not have that 60-second or more strength. And that's really where the body is making the most progress, is during that long contraction. So that is the biggest tell that I could tell you for when your body is transitioning into that time period. And what's happening during the body during active labor is that the cervix is now actively opening and the baby is now steadily navigating the pelvis. The body will continue into this pattern up until the point that you become fully dilated and feel the urge to push. For those of you who are familiar with centimeters, as far as dilation goes, 10 centimeters is considered fully dilated. Most people want to know, especially in the out-of-hospital setting, which is where Sky Valley is catering to as far as where our clients like to deliver, either at birth centers and home births. People are very interested in ways to cope through active labor. Typically, this is where you would hear in a hospital setting them start to offer pain management tools such as medications, but that's not going to be an option in out of hospital. But that doesn't mean that there's not ways to cope through the sensations of contractions. So in active labor, a majority of individuals feel the instinctual urge to seclude themselves into a dark space with limited external stimuli. Contractions at this point have sensation all over the uterus and feel like a large squeeze that can start around the back area and wrap around to the front, is how a lot of people explain it. And contractions are going to build gradually in intensity from the beginning of the contraction till the end of the contraction, with the most intense part being in the very middle. So we call that the peak of the contraction. The best way to cope with that peak strength of the contraction is to exclusively focus on your breathing during the contraction and keeping your muscles as relaxed as possible. When you breathe fast and have if you start to begin to vocalize in a high noise, that tends to clamp up all your muscles, everything clenches and becomes tight. So that's where you hear people say, make low noises and breathe out your mouth. Both of those techniques are going to help your muscles relax. And the less that you clench, the less sensation that you're going to feel that feels uncomfortable. Or I try to avoid using the word painful, but it makes sense to people that painful part of the contraction is where you really are not giving your body the opportunity to sink into it. For sake of time, I'm going to recommend that if you'd like to learn more about coping mechanisms for active labor, go check out our video that we have exclusively dedicated to talking about comfort measures in labor. I believe the title of that one is Non-Medical Comfort Measures in Labor. So go check it out. What are some things that you can do with your body during this time to be proactive throughout the active labor process? The biggest one that I could recommend is to stay hydrated. Ideally, if you can get something like an electrolyte powder that has a little bit of sugar and salt in it, I'd recommend sipping on that throughout labor, and then having your support person, whoever's with you, remind you to empty your bladder. Your bladder is going to be in the way of baby making that descent through the pelvis, which in active labor is the primary goal, is to have baby descend in. So if there is something in the way, such as a full bladder, that's going to prohibit baby from making all the movements necessary to really descend in. So that would be my first recommendation. My second recommendation is to be knowledgeable and to make sure that your support team is knowledgeable about all the different positions you can put your body in during labor, and recommending every 30 minutes that you make some sort of change in your body to change up the shape of your pelvis. Now, someone like a doula or your midwife, whoever you have supporting you at that time, can give you some recommendations a little bit more custom to where your baby's already at in your pelvis and what might be most helpful. But rest assured, if it's still a little too early for your support team to be with you, just make some sort of change every 30 minutes. Some of my personal favorite positions to do would be the utilization of a birth ball, which is just a yoga ball, as long as your knees are lower than your hips. If you'd like to be in a restful position, getting on your left side on the couch or a bed and putting pillows in between your knees so that your pelvis is squared off. That can be a great position for some rest. You can also get up, do some walking, get in a lunge position and hold that where you're leaning against something. Any of those positions in any sort of pattern, any sort of like a circuit, if you will, it's going to be helpful to just continue to encourage baby to descend throughout the pelvis and make that cervical change that your body's trying to do. So that wraps up our video today for active labor, and within the next couple weeks, I'll put out part 3 where we're going to talk about pushing, all things pushing. What does it feel like? Ways that you can push, so on and so forth. So if you have any additional questions about active labor, drop them in the comments. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more, check out our website where I post blogs routinely, and any of our social medias are going to have lots of different tips and tricks for all things labor, pregnancy, postpartum, etc. So thanks for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video.